Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back for our next session, which is curated by our premium platinum sponsor, Oath. It features one of the biggest names in digital landscape, David Xing, digital prophet at Oath and otherwise known as Xingy. He has spent most of his adult life in the digital world working for both large and small creative companies globally, while also co-authoring actually several technology-related patents. So please also welcome Inez Fun, lead strategist at Oath on stage, and she'll be moderating the session. So please welcome Inez.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. We'd like to do a short introduction of what Oath is with this short video. Thank you. Well, as you can see, this is an exciting time for us. Right now, under the brand of Oath, we are now a global house of 50 over consumer and B2B brands, reaching 1 billion consumers, committed to building brands people love. And this afternoon, I'd like to welcome on stage David Xing. I think Melanie has done a great introduction. He will share his thoughts on innovation and invention in the form of augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. A round of applause for David.
Hey guys, how are we doing? I'm in Asia, you guys aren't going to talk to me, are you? My God, hello. Humans, yes! Hello, welcome to Mumbella. I want to thank those guys for allowing us to tool around. The reason for that is a publication taking a risk on making sure they provide knowledge into a marketplace that loves them is awesome. So I'm going to spend about half an hour with you guys today talking about a bunch of stuff that I think are interesting. And then we're going to do a little Q&A session because I think it's quite nice to be able to have a discussion around some of the topics that I'm going to talk about. What I love particularly about some of the areas in Asia is that not only can you speak incredible language like Cantonese, one of the most complex languages on the planet, you can pivot to English at a drop of a dime. And I can speak as fast as I normally do, and you guys still get that shit, which I think is awesome. So can we spend half an hour together talking about some stuff that I hope is interesting? And please, if you have a bunch of questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then we can go run out in the rain or something. Are we good with that? Can I get started? Okay, so computers are useless, aren't they? Because they only give us answers. And here's the challenge, man. The question for me is that what are the answers that we're trying to develop? Well, I think it's all about questioning. And the industry is all about questioning. And that's where we are today, because what a place it's been. I mean, I work for a company called Oath. You heard that introduction by Inez, which I think sums up what we're about. Touching 1 billion users is great. But look, man, there are two things I care about within the organization of Oath. And that is culture and code. Now, there is nothing that you touch today that isn't manifest from code. Ones and zeros, making everything that we touch today. But the reality is, what we touch is also manifest from culture. But at the heart of it is creativity. So typically when I speak at conferences like this, we don't touch on creativity enough. So I'm going to be an ambassador of that and talk about creativity and not innovation. You know, I saw the title of this session. I'm like, whose session is that? Oh, it's mine. Shit, dude. Because here's the deal. Because I'm a bit challenged by innovation. I think we throw it around. I think it's way too buzzy for me. The two words that we're way too buzzy on, it's not innovation, actually. I'll give that a pass. Disruption. Every time I walk into a meeting, people are like, oh, we totally need to disrupt. I'm like, oh, brilliant. How are you going to disrupt? Like, we'll use technology. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant too. What about your business model? That's the thing that sucks. That's the thing that needs to be disrupted. But innovation, I think, is out. So I'm not going to talk about innovation much. I'm going to talk about invention. And they're not interchangeable. Don't sit there and think, oh, they're the same thing, dude. No, they're not. One is change and the other one's create. And I think with the radical change of format and the way we engage with people today, we have the ability to create stuff that engages people and delights them. Because guess what? When people corner me at the bar late night, they want to talk about this shit. This is all that people want to talk about. All of these things. Woo! Awesome. What happened to fun, dude? Fun got punched out of our industry about 2 years ago. If you got into digital marketing late, welcome to the no fun game. Because somewhere along the line, we got lost in all of the cloud of all of this other stuff, which we could talk about another time if you like. But I think for today, I'd like to focus on fun. Because here's the deal. It's about culture and code. So let's do a quick survey. Who here in the room owned one of these as a kid? Sony Walkman. Awesome. You three ladies, do you know what this is? That's a Sony Walkman. If you didn't have one of those, you can Google that shit. They work at Oath. They know exactly. I'm just going to pick on them all day. Who still uses this? Imagine being Sony Walkman and having your ass kicked by iPod. The challenge is, by the time these guys entered the digital economy, iPod had already taken over. And that's what happens when you don't do both. You need a hybrid of both, because otherwise you end up with Google Glass. Now, I love Google. Don't get me wrong. They're an awesome organization, as you know. But boy, they don't always get it right. This is a classic example of doing the polar opposite of what people want. If you want no friends at dinner tonight, wear these bad boys out. I promise you. You'll have an entire street fair to yourself. But what I do know is that the official word that's we've transcended the ability for us to have to speak languages, because the language of most of us in our vernacular today that we get a real kick of, particularly in Asia, is the emoji culture. Because the official word of 2015 that was entered into the Oxford Dictionary was that, the tear of joy emoji. Not the word emoji, but that particular one. So maybe we're going to end up with an entire keyboard of just emojis, which is going to be a pretty crazy place to be in. We're almost like that today when you think about the way we text. But here's what's interesting. I love this quote. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Not mine. This is Einstein's. But what I love about Einstein is that he discovered the quantum theory. Amazing. But most of you probably don't know that he was a classically trained violinist. Classically concert-level trained violinist, like Yo-Yo Ma. Imagine that. So we're both artists and scientists. We have to focus on both sides of our brains. Don't just fall into the data runs. Don't just fall into the fact that it's all about things like programmatic. We have to balance both sides of entertaining and delighting and transacting with humans. Because at the end of the day, there are certain types of humans. According to Harvard, this is one way of targeting people. This is psychographic targeting according to Harvard. Makers, achievers, believers, blah, blah. Awesome. It's one way of targeting them. Or you could go a different purpose and think about Maslow's rule of hierarchy. This was invented in the 40s. I love what he does here, but however, the only thing we need to update at the bottom, I would recommend, is high-speed internet. But other than that, we're good. So you know this, guys. Technology is changing your behavior. All of us know that right now, because we're using technology in some way, shape, or form to be distracted from what I'm saying. Sometimes, however, we can never replace the human touch. How good's that? If nothing else in this session, I give you that as a gift. But what I do know, guys, is this. Understanding human needs is half the job of fulfilling it, period, full stop. That's the gig, understanding what humans' needs are. Because when people say we want to connect with humans, they immediately think of this dude. They think of VR people, virtual reality. They think of AR, the augmented realities. They think of MR, the mixed reality, and RR, which I prefer. That's real reality, by the way. That's what we're doing right now. This shit's pretty 3D, you know what I'm saying? But when we talk about connected humans, people are thinking about this cat. They're like, this is the guy I'm trying to target? Really? Awesome. If that's what Spaceship Earth looks like in the future, you can have my seat. But what I do know, guys, is I think virtual reality is actually a pretty cool tool. Who in this room has tried on virtual reality? Just quick show of hands for me. Okay. Anybody in the room own a pair of the goggles in one shape or form? Okay, can I ask, sir, in the front, what brand do you own? No idea. When was the last time you had them on? Also no idea. And how long were they on your face for when you did have them on last time you forgot? Yes. Awesome, thank you. Brother in the pink shirt, what you got, man? Same shit, can't remember? Someone gave it to you? You bought it? What are they? No, can't tell the brand?
It's a Chinese brand.
Of course it is, brilliant. Millions of those on the market. When was the last time you put it on your face?
3 weeks ago when I got it.
And how long?
Experiment for 10, 15 minutes.
Brilliant. This is a common truth I find, guys, is that people will try VR and say, oh, it's awesome. Who owns it? Woo! Not a lot of people. They're either given to people for free, probably Samsung or something came with your phone or whatever, and you tried it on your face for a couple of minutes, thought, oh yeah, that's kind of a cool thing. But here's the reality of it. We invested heavily in a VR content company because we believe that the content is going to change the game. For this reason. When you have it on, you honestly do not give two shits who's around you. It's an incredible experience. But what I do find to be an amazing experience is today, if you go and watch a film, if you laugh and I cry, nothing can change. It's the director's point of view. It's story as told in linear. But there are developments happening in the hardware that's starting to understand what your emotions are. So you'll be able to choose your own adventures. You'll be able to tell your own stories. So if you laugh, I cry, we get served different content. That's going to be incredibly different creation of content and story. But we're not there. Because the other thing that we talk about a lot is AR. By the way, VR, AR, been around a long time, man. These are not new. They're just kind of newish because people now have devices to execute them in phenomenal ways, like this young lady trying on makeup. It's fast, inexpensive, and shareable. So CFOs love that. It's a great tool to think about. And if you don't think it's going to be a real thing, check out what they're doing in China, man. They're developing this dedicated hardware that brings a physical world and digital together in a blended experience targeted towards children. Children's hands are too fat. They block the camera on smartphones, and tablets are too heavy, they break them. So people are inventing new technologies to engage this other alternate world. However, sometimes I think real reality is even cooler. Check it.
This is the Jaguar F-Type simulator. It's just sitting on a 6-axis hydraulic platform here. Roll you around, lift up, down.
All right, how are you getting there?
Once you're wearing this helmet, that's really going to simulate exactly what it's going to be like on the track.
Very cool.
Make sure you brace yourself. Good luck.
Okay, Glenn, I'm about to start the ride.
Welcome to Jaguar Virtual Simulator. A full sensory experience. Don't keep hold of the grab handles. Are you ready to experience the power of Jaguar F-Type?
And we all know what happens next. She shits herself. That's the power of physical experiences at times. But here's the deal. People want to know about IoT. Well, particularly here. Take Singapore, for example. You've got the Smart Nation movement, which I think is quite cool. It means that you're trying to create things like utilities under the universal banner of the Smart Nation. I mean, I think it's estimated to be in the $700 million range by 2025. It's pretty enormous when we think about the value of what IoT can be. But it's less about technology for me, and it's more about emotions. What are these interconnected little devices doing to emotionally attach ourselves to potentially brands and hardware? I mean, look at this device. This device monitors your sleep pattern, and it can distinguish the difference between a dog barking and a car alarm going off, so you can do something about the data it collects. Or this. This is the sort of voice-activated products brought to you by Apple, Google, Amazon. Or this. These are little tiny buttons that cost $30 that if you click, do a number of things you normally need your screen to do. So there are invisible interfaces coming too, which I think is pretty amazing to think about. RFID ink, the ability to have this keyboard on your body without having a physical keyboard nor a screen. So there are ways that we're thinking about this IoT space, which I think is quite remarkable. And then we've got wearables. Now, wearables is interesting because you've got companies like Fitbit that came to the market late here. But people still think that wearables are going to be a thing. I think it's an intriguing space. Has anybody got a wearable on right now? Has anybody got something on? Does anybody have one at home that they don't have here? So normally more hands go up for two reasons. One, it ran out of battery 6 months ago and you don't give a shit about it anymore. Second thing is it does the same thing your phone does. And the third thing is nobody gives a shit if you walk 10,000 steps anyway, so stop socializing it. So there's that. But what I do know is that they're gorgeous. They're stunning. They're wonderful pieces of jewelry. They all kind of do the same thing. Some look like they're from the future. Some look like they're from the past. They're enormous. Samsung are experimenting with theirs. This one allows you to take messages and listen to voice messages and make calls by holding your ear. It uses your body and your jawline as conductive listening. It's probably giving you cancer too, but you can deal with that another time. And then you've got Pavlov. This is also an unusual wearable. This one will shock you if you say you're going to do something you said you're not going to do. So if you're going to reach for that third beer tonight, this thing will just shock the shit out of you. So at least there's some utility there. There's 290 different wearables in the #1 category, fitness. They're all over our bodies. When I meet with these companies, they don't say they're in the fitness or health category. They say they're in the data business. So they compete with Oath and Google and Facebook of these worlds. But they're everywhere, guys, including our cats and dogs. And they're in the fabrics of our clothes.
Is that right? Yeah, that's it.
If a player is tackled, then you get to feel the physical effect of that. If a player is nervous before a kick, then you get the fluttering, you get that kind of sensory experience.
So you do not need to go to Disney World to experience 5D. You can sit in your living room and feel like what it's like to be a footballer. It's pretty amazing to see how far brands are going to be a brand of experience. This is not brought to you by a tech company. This is brought to you by a publisher. And I find it remarkable that there are even some other useful products like this. These are yoga pants that will go and actually micro-adjust your pose to be perfect. So there are amazing products that are out there, including this thing, man. This is probably the weirdest thing I've seen in quite some time. This is called the Gaze. This is a 3D dress that will morph and change based on your biometrics telling it you want to attract or distract that person. I don't think it makes that rattlesnake sound, but I can tell you I could use this on the subway in New York, man. Creepazoids. But I do know this. Everything that we have now has built-in intelligence. You can now target people when, where, what, why, and how. But it's going to be remarkable when the wearable web potentially comes. Think about this. We go from cinema screen, right, to television. Then we go to mobile phone. And then you're told to market on that. I should probably update that Kevin Spacey thing, hey. Totally inappropriate that I'm facing that dude right now, I guess. But hey, whatever, dude. He's a cool cat. So this is what you're told to market on. Square, rectangular, triangular, circular. Good luck. But if you're a designer, that's a unique opportunity to create, invent something unusual to bring people's emotions to the surface of the wearable web. So what? Marketers have turned up to talk about things here this week. So what? Well, the so what is, we're in the business of sight, sound, and motion. Still today, to create emotion. Why? Well, 75% of purchase decisions are made emotionally. We sell to the heart and justify to the head. And that's why I think that the 4 Ps that were generated back in the 1940s have been updated. And I think they've been updated to this: platforms, partnership, pedigree, and performance. A reflection of our business culture, not of consumers. And given that, times were simple when I grew up in Oz. It was very simple marketing techniques we used to use. That's my house I grew up in the town I was raised in. That's my family and 1 of 10 kids, so that's me on the far left, 16. Chinese Catholics, man, we're unstoppable. But I do know that at 17, when I bought my first car, that's when I had freedom, independence, and self-expression. At 17. But today, kids are born connected, aren't they? 37% of children under the age of 2 can operate the swiping device better than the parent. And when you give them analog, they think it's broken. Kids. Sit here and watch this thing for 40 minutes, right? People in the wild. Amazing. But I can tell you, the days are over of consumers just sitting there consuming content. No, dead and buried. You now have to worry about the creator, the critic, and the curator of experiences. I'm talking about the slash gen. These little bastards that believe they're artists, bloggers, VJs, DJs, ambassadors, influencers, amplifiers of your brand if they give permission to take it with. Like this sort of thing's kind of cool. They love to remix. So you're sitting there going, oh my God, what's he showing me here? So this was a young lady who was animated on a news cycle in the US. DJ Michelle, she's 22 years old, took this video and remixed it into this phenomenal remix, which, by the way, could have been brought to us by Eminem, seemingly. But what I do know is that, a lot of people say to me, look, Shingy, it's not just young people's game. Old people can still produce good content. I beg to differ, because this is Joe Griffith. Joe went to Vegas for a week with his wife, filmed his entire vacation, forgot to turn his GoPro around.
Canyon is, I'm not sure. I think it's that way. That's the view looking down. See?
Genius, man. The future of unscripted content. So look, I'm told we're no longer the advertising business. Okay, we're in the content business. Brilliant. If you're in the content business, now you compete with everybody. You're now in the popular culture game. And it's remarkable because the audience that you now amass has its own audience. So the life of content should start when you hit publish, not die. So that's the model that I think a lot of brands don't understand, because what you're competing against is personal expression as a new form of entertainment. Look at this, extreme selfies, man. You have more people dying from extreme selfies than shark attacks. That's the second tallest building in Hong Kong. Say goodbye to your afternoon tea. But is that generation of kids of throw up? No, they're not. They're actually more of a we generation than a me generation, because here's the deal. It turns out that the open social network you guys can buy into today. Great. Buy into it. But that, I believe, is not where the future is headed. I think it's going to a closed, interconnected network of humans. Why do I say that? Quick show of hands who's on Instagram in this room, please. Some of us. Who's is set to private? It's a lot of people, by the way. Anybody set to private in here? Yes, and typically women, by the way. Not all the dudes have put their hands up, but thank you, brothers. Peace and love. But what I do know is this. If I do that in front of high school kids who's on WhatsApp, Snapchat, WeChat, who's actually on Instagram set to private, boom, 100% of the hands go up and stay up. And what's happening in those interconnected network, I believe, is more authentic, more personal, and more intimate than the persona of the open social. One reason why? Bullying, physical or digital, is the same shit. Currency, whether you send it via Venmo or have a pocket full of cash, is all the same thing. It's currency. Whether you play a game on a screen or a board, it's all games. Whether it's a disposable image or a billboard, it's all image. So there is a blended experience here. And if you don't think the closed networks are really important, I mean, this is my world. I have very few friends, but when I text people, I'm like, please God, someone send back a message. And I think this could be a very important place for brands to play in. And look at places like China, where you have WeChat, who have a Dior bag available only exclusively in WeChat. Sold out 24 hours. Price, $4,200. You guys, no joke, don't mind transacting big value in these places in currency that's private. And I do think it's amazing because the values of young adults is they want to achieve happiness. They want to spend time with their family and friends, be true to themselves, and be financially stable. These values are more closely aligned with their grandparents than their parents. They're just misunderstood. They're busy, feed-driven, but represent a massive spend, and that's why all brands across the planet want to target young adults. They want them to grow up with their brands. Young adults want to be entertained. 90% of them bored. 96% of them are bored. 90% of them want to be entertained. Why? Well, when I was a kid, when the sun came up, my parents would boot me outside and say, don't come in till the sun goes down. Today, this is what kids are doing, man. They're dicking around on screens. And if you think about it, every brand that I speak to wants to target every single person on the planet. Oh. And then they want to have a deep, intimate relationship. Oh, okay, brilliant. How are we doing that? Particularly when creativity has to be redefined. We have to think about creativity differently because the world is overwhelming. We're hit with 1,900 media messages per day. 200 of those are ads. And then it's underwhelming because we can't find what we're looking for. And just think about this world, man. One of the largest contributors to stress today is media overload. So the shit that we're actually producing on behalf of our brands to engage with people, stressing them out and killing them. Yeah, good luck. But I think attention is the thing we need to worry about. Personally, my humble opinion is there's 24 hours in the day, but how we assign our attention to a brand, it's up to us and how good we are at doing it. Because the golden opportunity, I think, is this. This behavior, this particular device has been in everybody's hands the same amount of time. 10 years. Amazing, 10 years. This device has radically changed us in a world of tech neck. And what I love about it, I mean, holy dooly, talk about this country. Look at how almost 150% of the population is mobilely connected. It means a bunch of you still walk around with 2 phones or 2 SIM cards. And thank you, because we work for Verizon, so keep doing it, man. Peace and love. But what I do know is that what's hot for me is that if a brand can reflect back cultural change as marketing, we start to win. Because remember, the industry used to be based on big ads, little content. And now it's all about content and little ads. So I think it's an opportunity for us to think about emotion curves differently. We're very spiky. We seem to like really sugar hits, very, very much so as brands. And I think that's okay to sell things, but I don't think that's okay to build a brand over time. I think we need to do both. We need to create different ripples. And so with that, one of those ways to do that is make sure when you're producing something, make sure the production has a POV. Why? Because the people who are creating and consuming content are actually doing this. They have the same tools as you do. So we have to think about things differently. This is something I stumbled upon I love.
今日はエビフライです。3秒でできる作り方を紹介します。材料はエビ6尾。では移動します。これをつけてください。卵はあらかじめ溶いて入れます。小麦粉は入れすぎに注意してください。エビは丁寧にレーンに入れます。あとはボタンを押す。
The 3-second cooking show. How amazing is that? How many cooking shows have we seen in our time? This is pretty amazing, by the way, and brought to you by some branded content. But context is everything. Build good content, put it in smart places. So easy to say, so hard to do, but that's the gig. That's what you signed up for. And that's the opportunity. For me, I think it's about video. It's everywhere. We're freaky for it. We don't care whether it's long, short, mid, brought to you by, sponsored by, powered by, paid by. We care about video. Steve Jobs had a quote, a lot of times people do not know what they want till you show them. And it's incredible what you can do in even a short amount of time. Look at this, in 6 seconds. How good's that? 6 seconds. We might as well watch it 10 times. So good. Amazing. But look, I would argue, guys, that the most abused word in our industry is storytelling. And I would applaud us to stop telling and just focus on the story. And if you do that, you can end up with a great one like this.
The night can't stand the light. One day I'll fly away, leave all this to yesterday. What more can your love do for me? When will love be through with me? Why live life from dream to dream and dread the day when dreaming? One day I'll fly away, leave all this to yesterday. Why live life from dream to dream and dread the day when
I mean, I think that's a pretty phenomenal story of Christmas time by John Lewis, one of the largest retailers in the UK. And if you see that, they're trying to move as many products off the shelf as humanly possible at Christmas time, but they're not showcasing any product. They're selling to the heart to justify to the head. And if you're open to the power of the internet, you could even end up with something as crazy as this thing. Which clearly we can't play in the US because we're living it, by the way, so which is pretty amazing. And you could even end up with something as crazy as this thing, man. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter whether you do something as amazing as the polished story by John Lewis, or something as spoofy as Joe did, or you end up with something UGC generated like this. I would argue that the brand sentiment at the time that mattered most for John Lewis went through the roof, and that all matters in this noisy place. But the reason why it's an honor to come and hang out with you guys at Mumbella and to just sort of think about the amazing change in our industry is this incredible quote by Katharine Hepburn that keeps me inspired, which is, if you obey all the rules, you miss all the damn fun. And isn't that the reason we became creatives? Thanks very much indeed, guys. Cheers.
Thank you, David. We have some time left, so we'd like to do a Q&A with you. So I'm just going to ask him a couple of questions, and after that, we'll open it to the floor for more questions, all right? So get your questions prepared. Sure. So David, you've mentioned about the 4 new Ps: pedigree, platform, performance, and...
Partnership?
Partnership, yes. Can you tell us more about it?
Sure. So I think that, in every meeting that I have with a brand, they do talk about the 4 Ps still, and they quickly follow that up with the purchase funnel.
Okay.
I think the challenge for that is it's not necessarily how consumers act or purchase today.
Right.
So if we were to invert that and think about, well, how do businesses engage in the digital economy? That's where the 4 Ps came from.
Okay.
And the one that I think these are sort of self-explanatory in my opinion. I mean, we've got platforms, which is where is your brand amplifying itself? Because you probably outsourced the ownership of your brand to some of these channels.
Right.
Who are you partnering with to do that? So that's pretty basic. Performance, what are the things that your performance indexes that you're choosing to determine the parameters of success?
Right.
Now, some of that is going to be bog standard industry metrics that the CFO can understand. Some of that is going to be leap of faith stuff that says this is the thing that actually we care about. Maybe it's sentiment, maybe it's winning a design award because you decided to radically change your design infrastructure or your theories. But for me, it's about performance. And the last one is about pedigree. Now, if you have partnerships and platforms and you kind of outsourced your brand, I think the pedigree part for me is who are the brands that you're associating with that reflect the culture and the DNA of your brand to start off with. So that's the Yahoos, the New York Times, the Reuters, the HuffPosts, whoever your DNA is, the culture of your brand, who should you understand to align your masthead with their masthead?
Okay.
That's kind of the 4 Ps that I believe in.
Right. Good to know that publishers still have a point of relevance right now.
Very much so.
Okay. You talk about the we generation. I think that's a new term for us. What is the biggest challenge when it comes to engaging this group of generation who are big on social but close network?
I think there's a couple of things that brands need to realize. That you should reflect back the ideas of people that consume your brands and not the idea of the brand. Because you need to relate and reflect the culture of people that really consume your brand in a new and interesting way. I think the thing that also is interesting about the we generation is it's not necessarily about influence of celebrity. I think it's about influence of peer-to-peer more so.
Okay.
And that's why a lot of celebrities are trying to appear to be a friend of fans today, to make fans far more fanatic. And so it's less about, and then the next thing that works to obviously is authenticity.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that we need to also build into the idea of that is what are the things that the we gen are going to do to allow content to be portable, and what are the tools that you're implementing to allow that to be the case.
Okay.
And so it's, again, I think the underline for me is make sure you reflect back the culture change as marketing in an authentic way, otherwise there'll be a backlash against that.
Okay. We talk about technology, you talk about using innovation to engage the we generation.
Yeah.
Could you share with us an example that of a brand that have used VR or AR effectively?
Yeah, I think we have an example we can actually show.
What do you guys think?
Where's the art?
So what if we told you guys there was artwork just sitting here, hidden right before your eyes? Oh. Are you gonna hold it?
That's the magic. That's what you were expecting.
Pull up this picture.
So, if you think about this piece of work, which was actually done by our in-house team at Riot Studios, launched yesterday as well. So they did the work on this, which is the Louvre it's very much a boutique, high value, hard to access type brand at times.
Right.
And to bring that alive to other people, there's a different type of emotion. So instead of it being sympathetic in terms of how you associate your brand, that's an empathetic way of associating with it, which is how do I align with somebody and provide a service to them that normally would not cater to that, particularly that audience.
Right.
So I think that Louvre version is really good, and I'm glad we showcased that. But I want to talk about a couple of others that I think are interesting.
Sure.
By the way, when people talk about augmented reality, you're already probably using it. You know, if you're on Snapchat, clearly filters is augmented reality anyway. It's just, it's turning up in a different vernacular. It happens to be an overlay on anything that's physical. So if it's, picture perfect and you overlay a filter, that's the augmented reality piece of it. Mixed reality is when you get a chance to move around it. But both of those examples of, augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented and virtual have been around a while. My favorite augmented reality experiences, honestly, are ones that are very simple and do something of utility, not just entertainment or stunts.
Okay.
So it doesn't exist anymore, but the app that I really loved about 8 years ago was an app by Stella Artois. And when you download this app, you turn up into a city, you fire up this app and you do this, and it shows you the streets. It just shows you the city in your 360. So you just do that, and it points to all the bars that are serving Stella. I mean, that's awesome. I don't have to walk into a bar and say, do you serve Stella? No? Okay, I'll leave. Actually, I'd probably drink a Star of Ramen if they had it. But here's what's amazing for me. If you think about that, what did they know? They know distribution. That's all they knew back then was, hey, man, this is where I'm delivering Stella.
Yeah.
So why not create an app that says, oh, Stella available here? That's pretty damn amazing. So simple overlay on top of realism to create utility, I find that to be amazing.
But then again, I think a lot of marketers, when they think about AR and VR, the first thing that comes out is the hesitation of spending a lot of production money on it.
Right.
So what do you think? Is it possible to create such great stuff while keeping the production cost low?
Yeah, I think, and also let's understand that virtual reality, let's call it that for a moment, isn't limited to headsets.
Right.
360 video that's turning up on all your Facebook feeds of all those concerts and games that you're not turning up to and all your bloody friends are. That can be done by a Samsung phone or Samsung camera, or can be even done on some of the new devices. That stuff is really virtual reality because you're virtually there. There is no hero in that shot, by the way. There's no brand close-up. It's 360, so you choose to go in as you want to go in.
Right.
That's, I think, a great entree to people. And by the way, it's already available to you. So if you're a brand that isn't experimenting with video, you probably should, because consumers are. And how do you reflect that culture back? Doing, choose your own adventure VR work, that's expensive. But that might be worth it if one of the values that you want is somebody spending a lot of time with their brand in a fully immersive, engaging experience. Marriott Hotels, I believe, did an incredible experience where you step into a phone booth-esque thing, and you put these bloody VR thing on, and you could choose another holiday somewhere.
Oh.
And you end up in this adventure where, like, boom, you end up on the edge of this cliff, and you look out the thing, it's awesome, sunny, beautiful, wonderful beers on the beach and whatever.
Yeah.
And you take the goggles off and you're in gloomy London. That's pretty amazing.
That's good.
And that's what they wanted to do. And how does that bridge? It bridges the journey of why Marriott turn up. Hope to God you stay at a Marriott when you go sit in Bali or something. I don't know. It's a pretty nice way to think about how it's possible. Does it keep the cost down? No, but it gives them a beautiful longevity to say, we can take people on an adventure instead of flying them to Bali immediately.
That's a good one.
It also creates better empathy. You align with people wanting to experience what that's like. There's nothing quite like it when you first try on VR.
Right. Sounds like empathy is the word for
Yeah,
VR.
empathy is really big for me, I think.
That's good. But what do you think is the adoption rate in APAC compared to US and
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And I thought about, there's not really a lot of data around it, but I do think that I'll talk about a couple of things that I think are interesting. I mean, if you have a mobile connection penetration, anything north of 100, that means people really use their mobiles incredibly well. Like these people are using their mobile right now to ignore the hell out of me. It's a phenomenal thing. How dedicated we are to this thing, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're watching a big screen or anywhere there's some idiot talking on stage, you're going to be dicking around on your phone thinking, what the hell's going on WhatsApp? But what I do think is incredible about that is it turns out that Chinese, 96%, have either tried VR or augmented. It's all thrown into the same thing, out of Asia-Pac.
Right.
The Chinese are way ahead of it, 96% or something. Australia is like 22%, and Japan's at like 12 or something. It's really low.
Okay.
So if you think about that as a penetration, it means that people are excited about it, but what part of it? I mean, I'm staying here in the marina, and what's amazing is that as I checked in last night, there was not a young Asian lady at this VR terminal. It was an older lady. She had two phones, and she was standing in front of the screen, and she was creating an anime of herself. And I thought to myself, wow, that is an incredible interaction for me.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's not uncommon. I often see people with two phones. In fact, I saw an older woman with three phones. She had two phones, which are two games she was playing. And then she had a phone that had seemingly WhatsApp or something on it.
Yeah.
So she had all of this thing going on. I'm like, oh, that's amazing, man. That's an amazing amount of roulette.
Yeah.
But just to get back to that, if people are already experimenting with that, I think the number one place to have opportunity where VR or AR can really participate in that is retail.
Right.
And retail, I think, is kind of where it's all going to be amplified. The challenge and the limitation I have, particularly if I pick on AR, is the portability. You move away from a target, suddenly you've lost the ability for that dragon to come flying at you. We need to find ways to extend that experience beyond the moment of being there. The other thing you need to educate people is the bloody target is executable. This bottle of water will execute your AR experience. Oh God, now I need to market this thing, because guess what? QR codes haven't really taken off. Although they are all around these halls, but I don't know who's using QR codes. If you have an iPhone, you have to download a QR code reader.
Yeah.
It's not native to the phone, so it's not part of the inherent way you use a device. So look, I think at the end of the day, the Chinese are clearly well ahead of it.
Oh, that's good.
Particularly from a retail perspective. And I think luxury brands are probably the ones that are going to break it out first, because it's an extension of their wonderful brand.
Okay, that's good. Well, we have a couple of minutes more, so any questions from the floor? We have mics all over the room. Questions?
Were they all the questions you had?
Oh, that's one.
Oh, hey.
Hello, Tim from Umbrella. Thank you very much for making the trip to Singapore to join us. Interesting, you touched on very early in your presentation on the relationship between advertising and content, particularly digital media. I wonder, obviously you're here speaking on behalf of the many mastheads and brands of Oath. You're relatively new masters under this heading anyway. What's your advice to them on how they should stay relevant as part of the media side of the world? Where do you think that's going?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That's a great question. And thanks for making it poignant to Oath as well. So if you think about the combination of the assets of Yahoo and AOL, there are some brands within the portfolio that have a DNA that I think should still be their leader. So for HuffPost, it's making sure that blogging is super cool still. So you can be a contributor. Tim, you could write on HuffPost as well as Mumbella. And that's the beautiful thing, is that it's a wonderful platform for people to do things. So back to the core of the DNA of that brand, it's kind of that masthead discussion that I was saying before, is that what is it known for? Not all brands have breaking news, so don't do that, but go back to the core of what you do to engage people. Blogging, I would say, is a great example for HuffPost. For Tumblr, it's making these incredible places of expression outside where you probably watch some of this culture. So you wouldn't go to Tumblr to watch a live event, but you should go to Tumblr to talk about all the things around the live event, because that's really what the core of it is. So my advice, or my thinking, and that's, it's not under my remit, but I would recommend making sure we stay true to the DNA of why those brands exist and how you can make sure that's really part of the vernacular of how people want to engage. And that's true for all of the brands within the portfolio.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, David. As today's session is about innovation, so we have actually created an AR experience for all of you here in this room. So you can feel free to download the AR Riot app from your iTunes or from your Play Store, and you can point it at any Oath logo, and you will experience the AR experience right on your phone. All right? So with that, can we give a round of applause to David? It's been such a privilege to have you here.